Welcome back to the 10th and final session of our mini-series on meditation for beginners. Last week we already looked at how meditation can be used to solve problems confronted in our everyday lives. This week we're going to round up the mini-series by looking at how meditation can be brought out for the benefit of others in the world. There may be some who wonder how meditation can actually help in society, but in fact there's a lot of improvement which need to be made in society today because of many problems which we are confronting, which have perhaps never happened before in the course of human history. There's evidence, for example, that the fossil fuels are beginning to become depleted. The population is growing exponentially, and it's going to be a problem in the near future to find enough to feed everybody. We also have problems of infectious diseases which we've never before come across in the history of human civilization, and although we have advanced technology in medical science, there's still evidence that we cannot curtail the spread of some infectious diseases despite our level of scientific knowledge. On the environmental side, we are having problems with global warming, thermal pollution, and also the ozone layer is becoming depleted as well. So there are many bad things which we are facing up to in the course of our modern history. But on the brighter side, there are also good things and good predictions ahead for how society may be improving in the future. Part of this is seeing that the attitude of people in the civilized world is changing these days, so that people no longer see one another as enemies anymore, and they're having a more globalized view of humanity. They don't feel separated by countries, nationalities or religions so much as they used to. Now there's more a general feeling of well-being for humankind as a whole in the world. Some have even gone as far as to say that we are entering on what we call a new age. And a new age is rather an optimistic view of an ideal future for humanity. The new age may be an ideal, but in fact if it is something more than an ideal, then it's certain that meditation will have an important part to play in making it happen. So how in fact can meditation help us to reach towards something of a new age which is going to be better and more harmonious for humankind, and the sort of world where humankind can live in harmony within the natural world? Well, there are two important ways in which meditation can help us to do this. Firstly, by reducing our prejudices. This means that if we are able to meditate well, then instead of seeing ourselves as someone separate from the rest of humanity or the rest of the world, we will start to see the rest of the world as our brothers and sisters, and we want to treat them in the same way as we would treat ourselves. How exactly we'll do this, then that's something we're going to look at in a few moments. A second sort of thing which we need to work on very urgently if we're going to enter upon a more positive new age is to reach out with our practice. Instead of simply being contented to practice for ourselves, we need to encourage others to practice as well. So let's see how we can work on our prejudices. First of all, we have to understand how prejudices come about. Much of the prejudices we come across in the world are coming from a weakness which we have, in that we have a very clear standpoint if we have a conventional view of the world. If I'm sitting on one side of a table, then I see things from my own perspective. I don't see things from another person's perspective. And even a very small difference of point of view can lead to trivial things creating arguments. Take something like the number 6, for example. If I look at the number 6 from my side, then what I see is a number 6, and there's no discussion about that. But looked at from the other side of the table, a person might argue with me saying, oh no, that's not a number 6, in fact it's a number 9, because you've turned it on its head from their point of view. What meditation helps us to do is to see things from a more neutral perspective, not from my perspective or your perspective, but from a perspective which is more generally true and more objective. This is something which we get from the fact that the mind is in the center of the body the whole of the time. Even small proverbs, things like make hay while sun shines, or more haste, less speed, in fact they're contradictory, but you can use them in both to a good advantage, these proverbs, in different situations. But the same situation, giving rise to the different proverbs, may in fact cause arguments if we're not careful. But if we have a mind which is attuned to the center of our body by the fact that we meditate, then we will be less able to fall into the rut of believing solely our own point of view in a particular matter. This is why there's a saying that we are the I in the word sin. Sin, of course, means bad things, but at the center of the word sin we see the word I. And this is showing that, in fact, it's when we have our own egotistical view of the world that many bad things happen, because we tend to take advantage of other people. Supposing you were living in the world and you lived by yourself without a family, you wouldn't need to take very much interest in anyone else, because the decisions which you made didn't affect the lives of other people. You would only have to worry about whether there's food on your own plate. But supposing from living by yourself you get yourself a family, you find yourself as the leader of a household. Now, if you only take an interest whether there's food on your own plate and take no interest whether there's food on the plate of your spouse or children, then others would be deservedly calling you a selfish person. However, if you become leader of a family, you have to expand your circle of awareness to include all the members of your family. You have to be compassionate enough to think about whether they have food on their plates as well. Maybe be more concerned that they have food on their plates than you are concerned about your own welfare. This would be a sign that you have expanded your awareness to all the members of your family. And in fact, this is important because your circle of influence extends to all of them. If their lives are touched by your decisions, then you have to have an awareness of the people who it includes. Supposing they elect you as mayor of your own small town. Again, you have to expand the boundaries of your awareness to include all the people under your governance. If you are the mayor of a town and you think only of yourself or only of the welfare of your own family, then again people would accuse you of being a selfish person. You have to expand your awareness to include the welfare of every single person in your own town, because your decisions reach out to touch the lives of every person in your town. If they elect you as president of your own country, then again you cannot afford simply to think of yourself or your own family or your hometown anymore. You have to think of everyone's lives in your own country. Why? Because your decisions touch the lives of everyone in your country. Therefore, supposing you are moving up in the world to becoming president, then you also have to be able to expand the boundaries of your awareness to include compassion towards everyone in your own nation. Nowadays in the world where everything is connected, in fact, being president of a single country, you cannot afford just to think of your own country anymore. You have to think of the welfare of everybody in the world, because we share the same environment, we share the same planet, so the things we do affect other people in the world. When this is the case, when we know our decisions reach out to touch the lives of so many other people in different countries of the world, of course, before we take on the position of president, we ought to make sure that certainly our awareness and our compassion extends to everyone in the world. And this is why the higher we go in leadership, the more important it becomes to have a good grasp of meditation techniques in order that we can expand our awareness to the extent which our decisions reach. So we can see that the ideal world requires meditators. The more responsible you are in the world, the more meditation is necessary. If we can manage to do this, then we start to work towards a model of prosperity in our world where we're not just talking about material prosperity anymore, but we're talking about material prosperity going hand in hand with spiritual prosperity. Because there are two sorts of poverty in our world. There's material poverty, which normally are concerned about hunger and famine and so on, and there is spiritual poverty as well. Some people who have plenty to eat and drink, but they are addicted to, for example, gambling or drinking or drugs, which doesn't allow them to take their birthright, in other senses of the word. We see some societies, such as in the Western world, which are very poor on spiritual values while being materially very prosperous. At the other extreme, we see that some countries like India are spiritually very rich, but materially not so prosperous. In the ideal world which we are looking for, we ought to be both materially and spiritually prosperous, and the way which we can redress the balance, especially if we are in the Western world, is by meditating more in order to make sure our spiritual values keep up with our material prosperity in life. Only in that way can we be both materially and spiritually prosperous in our new age of the future. A second thing I'd like to talk about, in the way which we can help to foster in the new age, is that we cannot afford simply to benefit from meditation on our own. Really, we need to reach out to others in society with the benefits which we've got from our own meditation. Supposing you live in a neighborhood where you feel very peaceful from your own meditation, but you haven't never talked to your neighbors about meditation or about the advantages of living a peaceful life or a way of life where you don't take advantage of others. Maybe someday in the future, although you may be very peaceful in your own house, but when you share your neighborhood with others, someday the selfishness of the other people in your neighborhood may affect your life in an adverse way. There's a story of an old lady in Thailand who led a very kind and compassionate life, and she would go out almsgiving every morning for the benefit of the monks who came from a local temple. Really, this was generosity which she did for her own benefit. She never talked to any of her other neighbors about that. There was one particular day when this old lady was standing gleefully in front of her own house giving gifts to the monks. But then a local drug addict came along, and seeing the old lady may have some money on her, came up to her and threatened her if she didn't give him the money he needed. When she put up a struggle, he beat her and actually killed the old lady. Many people wondered whether this was rather an undeserving way for the old lady to come to an end of her life. But in fact, if you think about it, if the old lady had done more in order to reach out to her own neighborhood with some of the good values which she showed for herself, maybe this incident would not have happened at all. It's by way of illustrating that really in our society, if we have something good, especially on the spiritual side, then we need to reach out to other people with it. Otherwise, we ourselves may be the sort of person who is suffering from our negligence sometime in the future. And this is an important message for all of you who have followed this mini-series right up to now, where you've learned so much about meditation and hopefully put some of it into practice for yourself as well. In fact, on this course, we've covered many aspects of meditation. We've talked about meditation on the level of the mind itself, observing the changes in the mind before and after meditation, and even being able to evaluate our own quality of mind at any time. We've talked about the benefits of meditation on our level of knowledge, both material and spiritual, realizing how much we know, how much we don't know, and even how spiritual knowledge can be transferred from one person to another. We've also looked at how our outlook on the world can affect how we deal with hindrances which come up in our meditation, and we've compared these impurities to clouds which block out the sun, admixtures in glasses of water, and even impurities in the elements, all of which conspire to stop our mind from coming to a standstill. We've also talked about the benefits of meditation on the level of personality, how to deal, in other words, with our bad habits, and knowing how to be a teacher to ourselves, actively learning instead of passively learning, through the quality of having respect. We've talked about the benefits of meditation on the level of lifestyle to deal with life's problems, and we have seen the interconnectedness between meditation and everyday life. We've also looked at how a clear aim in life helps us divide our time more usefully, and how we can give our state of mind more independence from the negative influences in the outside world. On the level of society, well, that is something which we talked about earlier today. So, today we've come to the end of the first season of our mini-series on meditation for beginners. It's my hope, however, that we will not be parting at this point, because there is so much more to learn and a lot more which I'd like to teach to you. In fact, there's a whole lot more to learn about meditation, whether it be the lifestyle which is compatible with meditation, or the nature of the emotions in the mind. So this is really only just scratching the surface of the rich cultural heritage which has been passed down to us through the tradition of Buddhism. So I would advise that all of you stay tuned for the forthcoming second season of meditation course, which will be due to be announced shortly. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you again, and keep meditating while at the same time taking good care of yourself.